cash crisis worse. Talking about Venezuela once again.
Systemic important thanks. They removed the 1,000 they want to call monetary awareness.
All right, we are connected for the midweek edition of the news update. And as always, looking forward to connecting, sharing my 2 cents on a variety of subject matter. It looks like the ceasefire has been extended. We have the Iranian whoever putting out memes is just making this administration look like a complete joke. And of course, everybody knows the U.S. is trying to buy time. And yeah, it's just chaotic out here. But it looks like we might have a bailout. And we haven't had a bailout since, what was it? We had the GFC situation bailouts. We had the COVID situation bailouts. And so literally, is this Spirit Airlines bailout going to be the next catalyst for more bailouts to come? Because you better believe not just one company will allow a competitor to be supported and them not want some support as well. So we're going to talk about that and a lot more. But before I move forward, as always, for those who are new, you never know, want to give you a chance to make sure you connect with the channel. If you have not as of yet, make sure you subscribe. And then, of course, hit the bell, hit the check mark, drop a comment, share your 2 cents on whatever subject matter matters most to you. And definitely, I will do my best to try to keep the community involved. Okay, so let's jump into it. I got lots of headlines. I have maybe 6, 7 tabs open, all relevant to what we're experiencing and beyond, just trying to filter through the noise and make sense of what's happening in the real world. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to give you a quick glance at the markets this morning. And so as of now, as you can see, we have silver, 77 and 8 cents and 80 cents. We have gold at 47. And from the looks of this, opening morning, everything is trending down. Okay, it is what it is. We know what the real price will be at the end. And of course, let's just look at the crypto space. So as of now, it looks like Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing their thing. We got a lot of green here. And let's just keep it moving right along. This is something that should be concerning. We have Brent above $100. We have crude, $92. And so once again, pushing that upper echelon of a very expensive energy market, which is not good for this current administration. So that's something worth keeping an eye on. And then, of course, we got the Magnificent Seven, appears to be in the green, strong today. So you would think that the market has taken all this information as a positive and investor sentiment is very high. But then again, we know every tweet, every post from this administration is designed to pump the markets and make it appear as if we're controlling the narratives while it buys the U.S. more time. Because once again, I don't believe that the U.S. is cut out for a long-term scuffle with the Iranian regime and all their allies. So we're going to see a lot more. But let's just jump into the headlines. So here on the screen, we have just the buildup of the narrative around Spirit. So on the screen here, you can see over the last, this goes back just right here, 5 days. It says Spirit Airlines reached out to Trump administration for emergency bailout. Then yesterday, Trump tells Transportation Department to take a look at Spirit's bailout talks grows. Then you have $2.1 billion in debt. Trump talks bailout of struggling Spirit Airlines. And then sure enough, here we are today. Trump extends, wrong one. Trump administration in advance talks for Spirit Airlines rescue package. So this came out 11 minutes ago, but to no surprise, I was listening to the Trump rant. I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago when he did a interview on one of the mainstream news sources, and he was just 30, 40 minutes of just ranting, talking. I mean, they just letting this man just jabber. He said a little bit of everything, was saying nothing. But one thing he did say was in reference to Spirit. His concern was if they go under, the massive amount of job losses that would be as a result of that. And then you're going to have every other company as well that will become quite obvious that the economy is not as great as he wants us to believe it is. So let me just jump in here, read some details here, and then I'll give you more headlines as to other subjects that are of importance. But it says the Trump administration is advanced talks for a financing package for Spirit Airlines as the carrier is facing the risk of a liquidation, according to person familiar with the matter. It says the iconic discounter Spirit has been challenged for years by rising costs, changing consumer tastes, and engine recall and a court blocked plan to acquire JetBlue 2 years ago. So the whole idea of that merger was, why not bring two airlines together to cover up the failing issues of one and allow the other one to support that one, providing it more time before inevitably every single public traded company that relies upon energy on top of other things is subject to the woes of policies coming from the administration. So the fact that Donald Trump is now in a position where he has to address this is no surprise. And this will not be the only one. Then he goes on to say, Spirit Airlines would be on a much firmer financial footing had Biden administration not recklessly blocked the airline's merger with JetBlue. So here you have the narrative from the White House currently blaming Biden for not allowing that merger to take place yesteryears. But here's the other issue. Years ago, the concern of energy and the oil issue was not as prevalent as it is today. So no matter what, every airline, if you've been paying attention, have been cutting down flights due to the increased cost of aviation fuel. And so all airlines are experiencing troubles, but it's not solely because of debt the way Spirit is, it's more so because of the energy costs. Then he goes on to say here, Spirit has been facing potentially immense immediate liquidation. People familiar with the matter have told CBSC last week, speaking on the condition of anonymity, to discuss matters that had not yet been made public. And so there is threat of filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And that right there would be literally one of the many dominoes that are wobbling right now. And if Spirit doesn't get brought back into line as far as buying them time, because the bailout literally is going to buy them time, because the greater concerns is, of course, the economic issue that everyone's experiencing. That one domino, if it's not bailed out, will cause every single other domino to fall, exposing more of the lies that the economy is doing great. So, with that out the way, what doesn't and shouldn't surprise is the fact that the Iranian people in general, and of course some of the sources coming out with their media is really they're just trolling Donald Trump at this current moment. And so there's videos coming out on X from Iranian sources supposedly that is just comical in nature. And the most recent video that I captured, I'm going to share that with you, and then shine some light on this current ceasefire. And how I said last week, just expect pause, start, pause, stop, pause, stop, tough talk, back down, tough talk. That's going to be ongoing until we're in a position where we've been able to build up our everything on the back end to then try to put pressure on them again. But just take a look at this video here, and yeah, we're going to dive deeper into this one. Listen to this one. Was that funny or what? Oh my goodness, that was just some great comedy. But here's the subject matter. Trump extends ceasefire in Iran, citing seriously fractured Iranian government. So once again, I guess because the Iranians are having so much turmoil within their country, they're not able to get everything together to come to the table again. So once again, mainstream headlines. It's comedy at this point, man. So I'm not even going to read it. I'm just going to give you some of the summary of what is discussed in this article here, which by now we all know is becoming a joke. But it's not funny. It's a joke, but it's not funny at the same time because it impacts everyday Americans' lives and on top of that, the global economy. But President Trump extended U.S. ceasefire with Iran, saying the extension was warranted due to Iranian governments being seriously fractured. So it takes a lot of brain power to continue to come up with these propaganda pieces, aka lies, to make it appear as if they are in such turmoil and chaos when they've been preparing for, I believe, for this time frame for quite some time now, knowing that the U.S. under the influence of another nation state would be at this point where they're trying to unravel their entire way of life. So when I see seriously fractured, I'm like, okay, maybe some people believe. I'm sure people believe it, but if you're awake, you're aware, you're paying attention to this channel, you know the real deal. But it said here, Trump said the ceasefire will continue until such time as Iranian leaders and representatives submit a unified proposal to end the war with the U.S. and Israel. So until such time as, like, what leader of the most powerful, strongest military in human history, supposedly, says until such time? Now, on the surface, that's a great thing because it shows that he's stalling or he's actively trying to resolve this matter. I'll let you determine which one suits your perspective best. But the fact is, it's an ongoing thing. And so the best thing for him to do, if he wasn't so concerned with foreign affairs and things that don't directly impact us on a day-to-day basis, he would just say, I'll let, another nation state deal with that. Or allow the UN to do some things to solve those issues dealing with that region and just focus on what matters most here, which is making America great again. And so the threat of a nuclear regime or something being a threat to the US in the future wouldn't be the case if we mind our own damn business. If we stuck to what we do best here, which unfortunately is, not really relevant anymore, but you get my point. So, because the US always needs a boogeyman, and of course, other nation states will always use the US as a puppet nation to do their wars for them, it's going to be an ongoing thing. So literally, this buying time is more so, I believe, the US's way of trying to secure munitions on the back end, on top of all the other things needed to continue to put pressure on them, while all along threatening after forces. Then they're also like they're not backing down; they're moving full steam ahead. It doesn't look like their government is fractured. But it says that Trump previously has said that the ceasefire would end on Wednesday, which is today. So here we are today. The ceasefire has been extended until such time as, and yeah, energy costs still going up. Our way of life is still on the balance of propaganda and policies coming out of this administration. On top of Walsh yesterday, just basically just answering no real questions whatsoever, just showing that he's literally just a mouthpiece that will do more of what has already been done. And that's just where we're at this current moment. Okay. And so let me give you some more of things we're paying attention to. And so could this have anything to do with why the U.S. is needing to stall? I don't know. But it says U.S. military used up nearly half of Patriot missiles during the Iran war, according to analysis. So once again, this is a U.S. source. So why would they be spreading false information directly to perhaps hurt this administration, or they're into truth telling now, or who knows? But it wouldn't surprise me that we've been giving away so much of our military assets to Ukraine for the last 3 years. I haven't heard much about Ukraine directly. I guess Zelensky is, well funded for now. But here we are now, apparently may not have enough missiles to really have a long drawn out event in that region. So this is from the Hill, and it came out yesterday. So make of it what you may, but once again, the U.S. is not in the best position to really, really, really call the shots, in my opinion. But then again, I shouldn't surprise them. And I think one of the biggest things we're paying attention to, of course, is the energy market. And so let me just look back and see where we're at right now. So this is what we're looking at now. Brent is at 101. And as we can see, if you look over my shoulder here, it's trending back up mighty fast. So let me just go 3 months so you can see what I see. So this is the last 3 months. And over the last 3 months, it's up. Brent is up 58.92%. And so literally, we're at 101 right now as I speak. So if you just look at this graph here, if we go back, let me move this around here. If you go back to, say, was it a couple days ago, we were under, let's go back a week. Literally on the 19th, we were at $90. And this was what so every surge, it's a surge, then a ceasefire or an agreement, it drops, so every time it is dropped down here somewhere. So this is the 17th, 18th, 19th. So literally, it's in response to some narrative or some activity done by the Western Hemisphere to give a illusion of some agreement, a deal, or something like that. And of course, it's broken off. And then here we are now, the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and we're at 101.86. and this is Brent, the global oil metric. And so this is just not looking like we're winning. Like I wouldn't if I wasn't such a skeptic of all this stuff that's being done to it. I would just it's quite easy that we're not winning, whatever winning means, when it comes to civilizations that's much older than the United States of America, and us trying to, I guess, uh, regime change, nuclear, whatever the narratives are, whatever the data you're talking to. This is just not looking good right now. And so what we're going to witness is the first of many bailouts, and then we're going to have a some type of I try to hard to put the pieces of the puzzle together, but some type of shock. And what do I mean by that? Let me just share with you uh, another thing that is not really getting much airplay. Of course, people know the M2 is increasing, and so this is what we're looking like when it comes to the Fed's balance sheet. So on the screen here, this is the total assets on the Federal Reserve balance sheet. And so from going to this phase here, when we reached the bottom, that was $6.5 trillion on December 3rd. And of course, they changed the name. We're from QT. Now we're in not QE, it's Reserve Asset Management phase. And so from this point on, we're trending back up. And so from $6.5 trillion leaving or rolling off their balance sheet to now we're at 6.7. So that in of itself equates to over $200 billion that has been brought back into existence. And of course, we're witnessing more and more of the Treasury debt buyback by our government and how those figures are continuing to increase bit by bit, showing that as more people are looking for liquidity, they're letting go of U.S. liabilities, bonds, and treasuries, and the U.S. government is coming in and buy that stuff up to, I guess, meet liquidity demands as well as to prop up and keep bond yields somewhat in a relevant territory. Because if more people dumped than they were able to buy, that would expose that the petrodollar system and the security behind holding U.S. liabilities is a riskier thing than now than it used to be. And so here's another article that just happens to fit that same narrative. The petro-yuan will mature in bursts of crisis. And so this is from Asia Times. So once again, it's a Eastern spun narrative, but given all the things we're witnessing, knowing that more nation states as well as central banks are rethinking the dollar and rethinking liabilities in general, it shouldn't be a surprise. But give you a little bit of this article here. It says the petro-yuan, just the fact that it's called the petro-yuan, that term hasn't existed ever until the last, 5 years or so. That the petro-yuan oil and energy trade settled in Chinese yuan rather than U.S. dollars is not emerging exclusively because countries want to ideologically hammer the dollar, although that is inevitably part of it. It's emerging as a financial force because under pressure, nations need another way to get deals done. The distinction matters because it will define how the petro-yuan evolves relative to the petrodollar. Because most analysts still treat this shift as structural and gradual, a slow erosion of dollar dominance reflected in reserve allocations and payment shares over time. The data, however, did not support that this is a primary mechanism. And so the fact that there is another player on the block lets us know that the U.S. has a lot of things that they have to manage all at once, which makes all the noise that much harder to control. And that's why, regardless of what we're witnessing now, regardless of day-to-day action, just remember that at this current moment, knowing what the government is up against, gold and silver, $77 for an ounce of silver and $4,700 for an ounce of gold is extremely cheap compared to where it's going to go as a result of all this mess that's underway. And then you factor in the United States government has up to $7 or $8 trillion due of short-term T-bills taken out from the previous administration by the end of this year. And you got Wash coming in. And if Wash doesn't cut rates, you better believe there's going to be a major market catastrophe this summer because there is no more readily available liquidity to service current debt taken out. Nevertheless, the ability for companies and every other entity that's struggling right now to take on new debt. Consumers are up to the above their head down there in debt, all forms and fashions, and literally there's nowhere else to run. So if you cut or crash, or you cut and pump, no matter what, gold and silver will respond in either way. Very positive nature, because at the end of the day, holding a physical ounce silver is like taking out an insurance policy against the president, against the central bank, against all the financial promises that have been given out there that, once again, depends upon more currency creation. So just something worth keeping in mind. This is just some things worth touching on. So hopefully my mic was good. But other than that, okay, so that's it. That's all I have to say. So as far as investing in silver and gold, once again, just now's the time to be very cautious of the narratives. Using the word investing, there's no such thing as investing. You're either sure or you're speculating. Sure in the fact that if everything that we use to acquire things is based upon a dying currency, then that means everything denominated in our currency is subject to policies that we're witnessing now. So if Wash cuts, QE officially begins, they're going to expand the monetary base so much to prop up all the failing elements of our economy to where there's going to be a major debasement of our currency. Therefore, it's going to appear on the screen that things are going up, but in actuality, they're going down because the monetary base has been expanded. So the cost of everything that you are relying upon will also go up to the point where you'll have no true prosperity, put it like that. But it's the things that can't be printed that preserves purchasing power. That is what will withstand all the QE plus some, and then the inevitable rebuilding of the monetary structure. That preservation will still be there. Good idea. A good way of looking at it. A sunken ship of gold and silver from 300 years ago. If you just found it today, we've gone through different iterations of paper currency and all types of financial policies. But once you pull that gold and silver out of the ground, not only does it have its melt value, but it also has its numismatic value and all the other value on top of it, to where that gold and silver that was buried at the bottom of the ocean for 200, 300 years is still extremely valuable. While all the paper and digits and all the stuff in between usually returns to its intrinsic value of zero. So instead of using the word investing, how about use the word you're just redeeming paper instruments for something tangible. Just like this one silver eagle 100 years ago, roughly speaking, would have been a single Federal Reserve note or silver certificate. Not the case. Now this is like $90, 90 Federal Reserve notes, and this thing is still just one piece of paper. So that's just a different way of looking at it. I try to be very specific with my terminology so that people understand what I call monetary literacy. And so that goes before financial literacy. Financial literacy is what you do with what you've earned. Monetary literacy is what you're going to do with your time and energy before you actually put it into the markets where it's designed for it to go. So literally, it's taking some, redeeming some, and then speculating with some as well, because there's opportunity out here as well, especially knowing where the government wants to go and where everything is trending digital. So yeah, get in where you fit in. But anyway, this is just taking a minute, share my 2 cents. Hope you found some value here. First bailout of more to come. Wash is going to cut or he's going to tighten. Either way, it's going to be more of a liquidity drain or liquidity flush when the spigot's cut on. So once again, stay grounded, stay, on steady ground as the tide tries to raise ships or something like that. But anyway, just taking a minute, share my 2 cents. Curious what you guys think. If you found value, hit that thumbs up, drop a comment, take this, share it. Give an alternative perspective for people to know what's happening out here. Other than that, be blessed. Peace.